So we're going to go ahead and get started. We are so glad that you were able to join us today for this webinar, and we are so excited that James and John from Excel Global Partners are here with us as well. Now, Excel Global Partners provides clients with hands-on executive-level consulting expertise and solutions in management consulting and business strategy, finance and accounting consulting, and information technology solutions and consulting to sustainably improve the operational, financial, and technological performance of businesses around the globe. Excel Global Partners is also a certified LGBT business enterprise, or LGBTBE, and they were also the recipients 2 years ago of the LGBT Supplier of the Year. So again, we are so excited to have James Nowlin, CEO of Excel Global Partners, and John Sheldon, CFO of Excel Global Partners. So without further ado, do you gentlemen want to take it from here?
All right. Thank you very much, Brent. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak today and to share some of the best practices that we've learned as a certified LGBTBE to grow our business so that it's ultimately very profitable for us. And I know that sometimes the conversation regarding wealth and success is something that's not talked about easily, but in today's presentation, we really want to talk about, from an infrastructure perspective, what we have learned and what we apply, as well as some of the best practices that we put in place in order to achieve, quite frankly, our financial dreams. For me, I kind of have to take a step back sometimes when I hear people say, I'm so passionate about what I'm doing and I'm so driven by what I'm doing. Well, for me, it's fine if you're passionate about what you're doing, but is your business profitable? Are you making money? Are you able to make a financial difference and impact? Because the direct translation of money is power. And I think, quite frankly, the LGBT community leverages its finances well to provide a political voice and business voice, but we can always be doing better. I am joined today by my partner in life, as well as my partner in business, John Sheldon. He's our Chief Operating Officer as well as our Chief Financial Officer. Just a little bit more about EGP, or Excel Global Partners. We have performed services in more than 14 or 15 countries worldwide. John can correct me if that number is wrong. And we've performed services in more than 20 states across the United States. If you take a look at the slide that says about EGP, our clients are really a blend of government, mid-market, and large market corporations. That balance has really led to sustainability for our firm, because we've learned that when the government opportunities go up, sometimes the private sector opportunities go down. So instead of having really, really severe ebbs and flows in our business, we decided to balance out our portfolio to really make sure that in terms of the sustainability strategy of our firm and the financial strategy of our firm, that the corporation was always performing. John, just talk a little bit about some of our client engagements that we've had.
Sure. So as James mentioned, we've got a wide range of different types of work that we do across a broad range of clients. So just to kind of give you a couple of examples, right now we are very proud. One of our more recent contracts that we've won has actually been with Panasonic. They are completing a multi-billion-dollar acquisition that just closed a couple of weeks ago, and we are leading their financial information systems transformation to really be able to take what was previously a private equity-held company with revenue in excess of $1 billion, and to really be able to transform their accounting and reporting process around the globe so that they are now able to report their numbers to Panasonic North America, as well as to Panasonic Corporate in Japan, as well as to be able to monitor their performance based upon the financial metrics that Panasonic has laid out for them. Other types of projects that we do a lot of work also with nonprofits. Well, another one of our clients is one of the top Head Start organizations within the nation, and we are proud to offer them a combination solution where it's management consulting and strategy, as well as finance and accounting consulting, where we're able to really help them take what is already a stellar organization and position it for not just what they can do even more in the community tomorrow, but to really expand the legacy that they're leaving as they're providing services across the Austin Metroplex.
Absolutely. And so that you guys know, our firm was founded back in 2007, and you guys remember 2007 and 2008. It was not a very fun time. I walked away from my practice as a corporate attorney. We thought that the economy was relatively strong. John was chief financial officer of a billion-dollar company, and there was a severance involved with that. So we've gone through the financial rigmarole and challenges and, really struggling to put one foot in front of the next during that period. It really made us tough around 2007. We took the lessons learned and we applied them to our business to create a sustainable model for financial success. Not too long ago, I read an article, I think it was just a couple of weeks ago or so, that talked about how challenging it is for companies to compete against large market firms. Prior to 2007, Fortune companies were not competing with the little guys. They weren't going after the little $25,000 or $100,000 contracts. They were going after the $1 million plus, $10 million plus contracts. Today, because of the ramifications of a really tough Great Recession, you find that large market companies are sitting on substantial cash. You find them not hiring as many people as they should. You find them overworking their employees. And you also find them competing very competitively on small opportunities that would allow an emerging LGBTBE to actually get in the door. So we've learned how to be tough. We've learned how to go toe-to-toe with these corporations, and it's not an easy road out there. But once you're in, particularly within the government space and also within Panasonic. I think that our work in St. Louis at Panasonic Husband right now is going to lead to opportunities in Japan. But in order to prepare for that, we've got to make sure that from a financial standpoint, we've got the infrastructure, we've got the money and the working capital to hire the employees that are needed, to pay for flights, to pay for hotels, and to pay for all the resources that are required for certain projects. For us, we have had to be very smart financially because of some of the size, the magnitude of projects. We've been on projects where they've been out of state or out of country, and John and I, quite frankly, have to put plane tickets, very high salaries, hotel rooms and so forth, and living expenses. So we're very judicious and cautious about how we spend the dollar. A little bit more about, back up one slide, John, a little bit more about EGP. Talk just a second about the three areas that we're in and why specifically we don't go beyond those three areas.
Absolutely. So as Brett introduced us in the beginning, there's really three practice areas, and this was something that James and I very consciously sat down and talked about at the early stages of our organization, and then quite frankly, we revisit it on a regular basis. Really to make sure that we are positioning XL Global Partners in a position where it can excel, no pun intended, but to also make sure that we are always delivering, because one of the things, as we all know around this phone call, the big businesses may have opportunities to screw things up and they will still get a second chance or they will not be fired by the client. But each of us knows that we all get one chance to make the right impression. And that's very important. So for us, we really have delineated our practice areas with being management consulting and business strategy, the second one being finance and accounting consulting, and the third one being information technology and solutions, which primarily focuses more around the financial side of information technologies.
Absolutely. And when we were a younger company, we would be approached with opportunities that really were not within our sweet spot. But we realized that if we got an opportunity and we didn't do a good job because that was not in our swim lane, that we probably would not get a new opportunity with that client. So in this presentation, we've got action items at the bottom of certain pages. And the action item for this page is find your sweet spot and stick with your core strengths. In these three practice areas, we've been able to grow them substantially. We've got employees and employee teams that work in all three of these practice areas. And really, you become a subject matter expert when it comes to a lot of the requirements for RFPs or for new opportunities. And you don't really dilly-dally around and try to figure out things where you're already known as the industry-wide subject matter expert. That's been really beneficial for our growth strategy. Absolutely. Because it's allowed us to build a stellar reputation where the work comes to us because we're not trying to do things that we're not capable of doing or trained in doing. Next slide, please.
So one of the things that we're just going to kind of, position before we even go into the different bullets. As James mentioned, I started off my career in corporate, and my final position was with Jacuzzi Brands, and we were sold to private equity. And at that point, I was like, this has been a fun corporate bandwagon, but let's go ahead, take the severance, and move on. And one of the things that we really learned through all those different corporate experiences is you've got to position yourself as a business owner for opportunity. That opportunity can come in the form of, I never want to sell my company and I can never imagine being without it, so I need to make sure I have a well-run business. However, the flip side of that is you also want to always keep the doors open and run yourself as though you may someday sell it. Because if you do that, what you're going to do is you're going to not only have the opportunity to both sell the company as well as to keep running it, but in all honesty, by putting these different strategies in place, you will have a more saleable company if and when circumstances change and you decide to sell, or you will have a stronger company if you continue to run it as it is. So again, putting these into place keeps your options open, which quite frankly will benefit you and the organization as well as your clients on the long run by having these strategies employed.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why we're so passionate about strategic growth and wealth creation via your business is we've been around for going on 10 years in our business, and we've seen, the good, the bad, and the ugly. One day I was actually visiting with a friend, and she has a $40 million company, and we'll call her Stacy because I won't put her on the spot, but she would love for me to share this story with you guys. I said, well, Stacy, you have this, big, wonderful $40 million company. What's going on with your purse? I mean, it was raggedy. It looked like it was falling apart. And she said, oh, you know my business. I'm so passionate about what I do. We haven't been profitable in years. And I said, whoa. You work this hard. You put in this time. You put in this effort. And you're not able to provide for yourself at the level at which you would like to provide. So I sat down with her and I talked about some of the controls, some of the systems, some of the policies and procedures that she had in her business, which on the outside looked like it was a successful firm, but on the inside it was not. And what it boils down to is how well and how lean your company is run and how your infrastructure is functioning internally. So we talked about some of the things that she could change with her business, and today that $40 million company has made her quite successful, and she's headed towards retirement.
So the four areas that we're going to really focus on today are looking at strategic growth and things around the finance and accounting controls, which hopefully everyone will not doze off. The good news is you're on mute, so if you start snoring, we won't hear it. Vision and strategy, human resources, policies and procedures, as well as business development and marketing. So again, with the first thing, the finance and accounting controls, it's really about building a foundation today for tomorrow. There's a lot of things which we can do within the finance and accounting space that not only help you to better understand what is going on in your business, understand what levers need to be pulled to make sure that your business is being run the best that it possibly can be, but to also make sure that you have positioned yourself to build that wealth, that you have positioned yourself if and when at some point a strategic opportunity comes along that you can sell the company or merge with another company. It positioned yourself to take advantage of an opportunity. Sometimes I know within our business in the early years, we would sometimes hear about people getting opportunities and we'd sit there and go, oh my gosh, what if that type of a large opportunity were to show up? Would we be in a position to take advantage of that opportunity and succeed? So making sure that your finance and accounting is in the right place will help you to have the confidence to pursue and to succeed at those larger opportunities. And then lastly, quite frankly, your finance and accounting controls, when you succeed, when your business succeeds, your employees succeed, your strategic partners succeed, and your clients succeed.
Absolutely. A couple horror stories. One is a story of a company based in Austin that actually hired a secretary who was very skilled at fraud. She would go to the company's mailbox, take out the invoices, change the invoices, and have the money funneled to herself. Because they only received paper notifications in the mail and not electronic notifications, the owner of the company was not able to reconcile the difference between the fraudulent invoices that she was receiving versus the actual invoice amount. That company lost a substantial amount of money, and they actually pressed charges against their secretary, and she ended up spending 2 years in prison for that. Another story, and quite frankly, this is a really, really tough one. If you guys have heard of the world-famous company called Collin Street Bakery, Collin Street Bakery, they're based in Corsicana, Texas, which is pretty much halfway between, I think, Dallas and Houston, or Dallas and Austin. And in Corsicana, they are the world's largest fruitcake manufacturing company. This company sends fruitcakes to the president, to the Pope, to Oprah, to famous people, and they patented and mastered fruitcake distribution worldwide. Long story short, the owners of Collin Street Bakery are a very wealthy, old Corsicana family. They hired a controller. The controller got into their good graces. They promoted the controller to CFO. The CFO shows up one day with a Corvette. A year later, he shows up with a Porsche. A year after that, he shows up with a Rolls Royce. And he and his wife told the Corsicana community that they had inherited family money. Everybody was very, very happy for them. So this goes on for several years. They're the talk of the town. They've got all this money. They look so wonderful. And the Collin Street Bakery actually hired a young financial analyst who walked into the office of the CFO one day, and she said, something doesn't look right. And what she had discovered was that over the course of the CFO's time in business with Collin Street Bakery, he had taken over $18 million from the family. $18 million might not have been that big of a hit for the family, but it was certainly a big hit for a lot of us. But they did press charges against him. He's in federal prison along with his wife today. That goes to show that having those checks and balances in place, segregation of duties, and really educating yourself on the financial end of things makes a difference in terms of wealth creation and where your business is going. You don't have to be a CFO. You don't have to be a master's of accounting or any of that. You just have to have financial literacy. And for me, one of the regrets that I have, being a corporate finance attorney prior to this life in business, is that I did not take the finance and accounting courses in college or next door at the business school. But I've learned how to push back, how to ask the right questions. And so for everybody on this call, if you have a controller or a CFO, push back on that controller or CFO. Make sure that, check signing authority does not exceed a certain amount. Make sure that there's segregation of duties, that certain checks require 2 signatures, and that you're keeping really, really good records and having month-end closes to make sure that you understand your financials, because at the end of the day, the owners are the one who are responsible for the business, whether it's making lots of money or losing lots of money. So the action item for this page is to make sure that you receive paper and electronic notifications. Reconcile those. If you miss something electronically because of your junk mailbox catching it, you'll have the paper version. And in our office, we have very large lock boxes and safes and file cabinets that only a couple of people have control of and access to. So that has served us well.
Right, absolutely. So real quickly, just kind of talk about a couple of things on this slide. One of the things that I always like to tell people is, you've got controls in place. Controls are there for a reason. Even with a small organization where you may only have a handful of employees, those basic controls still allow you to provide checks and balances. Again, we always say sometimes what we have are hard controls, which may be things literally will grind to a stop unless the next step is taken. Other times we have soft controls. One of the things I always tell people is your bank, as much as they like to tell you otherwise, they are a soft control. I know one of my neighbors recently had mail fill out their mailbox, and they had sent a check to their car finance company to make their car payment. The person that stole it crossed out the car finance company name, wrote their name in the payable to section, and one of the top nationwide banks actually cashed the check. So again, that's why these other things are so important, is you need to make sure that you've got understanding and visibility to what's going on in your organization. And one of those things right there, the second bullet that I tell folks is one of the most important things is your chart of accounts and your item numbering scheme. Those two things, if you set those up correctly, will give you very quick visibility to what is going on in your company. As your company grows, you are not going to be able to be tracking every single line item. It's just humanly impossible. And the truth of the matter is if you're focusing on every single transaction that's going through your bookkeeping software, you are not out there growing your business. So that's going to be a problem too. By setting up a chart of accounts and an item numbering system, which sound kind of mundane, they can provide you with incredible intelligence. You do not have to be a large company to have quick visibility to what is going on within your business. For example, item numbering can be something where if you set up a set of item numbering schemas that give you visibility to the different types of products and services, to whom you sell them for different reasons, kind of set up a couple categories, and you set up your numbering convention, you can very quickly, out of even some of your more basic software packages like QuickBooks or Peachtree or different things like that, generate reports that are telling you, hey, what's going on? This month's financials look different than last month. Let's look. What was the quantity of units that transacted? What was the average selling price? You don't need to have a big Cognos data warehouse like a GE or an AT&T to do this. If you set up your system correctly early on, you will, quite frankly, at the touch of a couple of buttons, have enough information that you can tell what levers need to be pulled to help your business get back on track. And it will give you a better understanding as to how things are translating to the bottom line. The last couple things on this page, and we'll go on to the next page, really record keeping, checks and balances, and segregation of duties, again, are basic things that can be done to make sure that you are keeping things documented. As you're looking at things, a lot of times in this world, we are very, very electronic. I really try not to kill trees, but I unfortunately think that accounting is one of those areas where, folks often err on not killing the trees, and then that comes back to bite them. For example, all of us, I'm sure, get electronic bills from our cell phone provider and from some of our other service providers. But what happens when you change cell phone providers? Let's just say you switch from, T-Mobile to Sprint. Or let's just say that something happens and your account is compromised and AT&T says, hey, we need to give you a new account. Or something else, goes on and all of a sudden you've got a new account. You've lost all that access to that historical information that was stored on your account. So you need to make sure that you've got that stuff downloaded and or printed out and stored in a spot so that as you look at your record keeping, and the IRS has the right to come back over a 7-year period, if questions are ever raised, you've got those records. Because unless you've got those, the assumption usually does not work out in your favor.
Absolutely. And just before we move on to the next slide, John, in terms of financial education, it's important for CEOs to be growing the company, to be out in the community, to be going after new customers, and to be winning new customers for a business. You shouldn't spend all your time in the back office. And I think that we all know that, but sometimes it's a little bit more comfortable to be working in the office than it is to be out trying to get a new client, because sometimes doors do get slammed in our faces. But the bottom line is, and I think the thing that we've learned is, as companies are quickly growing, often the CEO or the business owners actually underestimate the resources, the time, and the talent that's needed to run the back office administrative, finance and accounting, HR side of the business. As your company grows, be sure to invest in these things, hire people you trust, and watch those people like hawks. I tell people this all the time, if you're in business long enough, there are two things that are going to happen to you. One, somebody's going to steal something from you, or two, you're going to get sued. Those things happen in business, but our goal is to help you to reduce as much risk as possible so that you can keep as much profitability in your pockets as possible.
The next section, really, we want to talk about vision and strategy. This is one of those things where I think every single person on this phone call as an entrepreneur has a dream. Otherwise, we would not be an entrepreneur, quite frankly. It's just who we are. We're dreamers. But also making sure that you back that up with a plan. You can dream big, and we all have to. But then make sure that we've got action steps that can be executed. We need to understand, even the most basic things about, how do you fit into the marketplace and how do you compete? The question of why would someone buy from me? Why would your customer choose you? And again, for all the reasons that we can all think about, the reality is we have to be able to compete in an ever-changing and dynamic marketplace. So having a plan that is executable, having a plan that we can assign owners to, something that we look at, for larger companies is doing full-blown strategic plans. With those strategic plans, there are a number of pages after the vision is laid out, after the marketplace is evaluated, the competitive marketplace, where's technology going, all these different things are happening. There's a whole bunch of pages in there about what needs to be done, who is going to own that, and how are we going to track that they're making traction on those action items. In a smaller organization, you may not have the time, the resources, or quite frankly, the need to do a full-blown strategic plan. However, sitting down with yourself, your key advisors, if you're, perhaps there's only a couple of folks in your company, so maybe sit down with some of your close advisors outside the company. If you have a few more people in the company, include some of the key folks within your organization. And just talk about these things and put them down on paper. Put people's names down next to them to make sure that they can be revisited on perhaps a 3 or 6 month basis, or at minimum an annual basis, to really say, hey, a year ago we wanted to move towards this in the next 3 years. We're now 12 months of the way into that 36-month time period. These were the action items that we had. How are we coming on those? And quite frankly, do they still make sense? Has something happened within the marketplace that maybe has created a situation where we want to realign our priorities and focus?
If you look at, the action item, meet quarterly with your advisors, industry mentors, CPA, attorney, wealth advisor, insurance broker, and advisory board, make sure that this is something that's actually happening. I know that it's easy to say that, I just don't have the time, I'm working on this new contract, but having a direct line of communication, a personal relationship, and a business relationship with core, knowledgeable team members who are experts in, wealth advisory services, legal services, accounting services, and so forth is really invaluable. The other thing that we've learned is that people love to share free advice, and one of the things that we have on our firm, for our firm, is an advisory board of volunteer business leaders who are truly interested in John's and my future and the future of EGP. It's wonderful, some of the advice that we've received. We've got a couple of chief executive officers on our board, and these are people who work globally and travel worldwide, but they're willing to come to Austin to visit with us and or to have a 10-minute or 30-minute conversation on the phone with us if we need to get through a certain thing. The other thing is really focusing on vision and focus on making sure that you're thinking big and dreaming big. Again, I talked about the notion that wealth creation is a little hard to talk about, but dream big. One of the things that I do is I have a vision board. John has a vision board as well. He has, the picture of the family that he wants, the picture of the home that he wants. And amazingly for us, as we look back on our vision boards of past years, all of those things have come true. And quite frankly, I'm a country boy from the hills of Virginia, and John's a country boy from the hills of Pennsylvania. We both grew up in rural settings and in families in which education was not the priority. We were able to dream big, think big, stick with our plan, and really execute upon that plan because, 1% is the idea, 9% is the plan, and then the other 90% is actually execution. But because we've always had a plan, we didn't fail. And as the saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I'm going to be sending, actually in this presentation, I've got the link at the end for a couple of resources. We've already talked about the Collins Street Bakery story. That article is called Just Desserts. We'll have the link to that so that you guys can download it for free. Also, one of the most profound books that we like to point people toward is The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. He really talks about envisioning the power of attraction. Positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative, and it just reminds us that if you think big and dream big, you will achieve big things. If you think small and dream small, you will achieve small things. Finally, another resource for me that I pretty much read every 6 months, and I share this with every friend who wants to achieve a certain financial dream, is The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Last name is Wattles. You can download that book for free as a PDF online, and we have a link to that at the end of this presentation.
So I know one of the things that we keep coming back to as business owners is wealth creation. And this is not something that is generated out of greed. It's generated out of a necessity. And we all have to keep that in mind, because I think one of the things that most of us, as we know each other, you know, a lot of the folks on this phone call, if we saw each other face to face, we would know who each other, know each other. And realize that we all have big hearts, we have big dreams, and we really love what we do. The reason we keep coming back to wealth is because oftentimes that's something that we're afraid to talk about. And the reality is we have got to plan for the future. That future can be something completely unexpected. It can be something like having children, putting those children through college. Obviously, that requires a degree of wealth creation, no doubt. It could be all these different things. And what you're doing by focusing on making sure that everything comes back to that wealth creation is you are making sure that you and your business is going to be there tomorrow. That means you're going to be there, obviously, for your unforeseen circumstances and your family's opportunities. You're going to be there to take care of your employees, because we all know without the ability to weather downturns, we'd have to lay people off, and that's very difficult for all of us as business owners, so we try not to have to do that. We want to be able to donate to causes that we believe in. We want to be able to someday, as much as we may all be having fun, retire. So with all those things in mind, we need to make sure that we are keeping an eye on that wealth creation, because if we aren't putting an eye on it, there is no one else that's going to be. Our employees are, with best of intentions, are not going to be. So we just need to focus on that so that we're there for ourselves, our family, our friends, our employees, and our causes.
Absolutely. And wealth really does have a voice, and wealth helps you get into the room of opportunity. Since our business has grown substantially, the meetings that we go to and the people that we connect with are fundamentally different than the people that we connected with in the meetings that we went to during the first year of business. We use that money as a tool to get into the room. But if you're not in the room and you don't show up, or if you cannot make it into the room of opportunity, the opportunities most likely won't come your way as easily. We'll share with you guys that we have a baby on the way. We're very excited about that. We just have a few more months to go before the birth mother will be giving birth to our beautiful child.
Yes.
And we're really interested in not just giving back to our communities and making a difference, but to making sure that this child has a better life and better access to education opportunity than we ever could imagine. And as our blessings come in, it's incumbent upon us to be responsible stewards of those blessings, to share with family, put family before things, put community before personal possessions and pride and haughtiness, and to really understand that when you get, you give. And the more I volunteer and the more that I give to the community, it seems like the contracts come in faster. So that's one of the reasons why I really, really like to volunteer.
So again, and that's where, like I said, a lot of this stuff will come back to wealth creation, whether it's today or in the long term with a potential sale. These things all fit together, not just for our own dreams, but for those dreams of those around us. As we look at the next topic here, another exciting one, which small business owners we often overlook, and that's HR policies and procedures. I'll just real quickly skip to the last one, compliance. That's one I think we all know we have to do. Compliance is a tough area, especially as you grow, you become more, there's greater compliance requirements that come with that growth. But as we look back at some of the earlier bullets there, again, it's about building that foundation for tomorrow. We all want to take care of our employees. Our employees, whether we sell services or products, whether we make high margins or low margins, our employees are really the core of our business, and without them, we all would be lost. So we want to be able to take care of them. Having policies and procedures, as much as some people look at that as being restrictive and being a negative for employees, the reality is it sets the clear guidelines and the rules by which they can succeed, which most people, as employees, that's what they want. They want to know what are the rules by which I can have security and success and financial stability. If they weren't as interested in some of those things, they probably would be like all of us, and they would have gone out and actually started their own business. But again, having those policies and procedures gives them the understanding. Hey, I want to be able to take time off for the birth of a child. I want to be able to take time off to go on vacation. I've got an unforeseen event going on. What are the rules around that? The other thing I also tell people is policies and procedures are your protection. If it's not in writing, you would be surprised sometimes at what folks will actually imply. As an example, one of the questions I always ask people, whether you do a PTO policy or a vacation and sick time, whatever type of time off policy that your organization employs, one of the things that, I always ask people is, okay, well, people are eligible for their PTO or their vacation time. Typically, it accrues on some sort of annual basis that may increase with seniority. Does that accrue on a pay period basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, an annual basis? How does that work? I actually know of an organization just recently where an employee gave notice and said that they were leaving the first part of January. As that time approached, and it was the first couple days of January, they were getting ready for their offboarding. They quite sincerely and without any malice, but they, again, thought these were the rules, said, okay, now I'm assuming in my last paycheck I'm going to get paid out for this year's vacation. This person had worked about a week and a half into the month and thought, based upon the lack of a policy and procedure clearly defining how they were accruing that benefit, thought that they were going to walk away with a check for 3 weeks worth of vacation after working a week and a half, because they thought that they were entitled to the full year's time off. Again, that may sound trivial, but again, putting that out there in writing allows people to better plan. The other thing that I always tell people that's important is look at free resources that are available. Your Secretary of State offices in the various states where we do business, and your Workforce Commission website. Some states are more savvy than others. We do business in a lot of different states, and I will tell you, some of them are stuck in the 80s.
70s.
but then other ones are quite sophisticated and have a lot of information. I know, for example, with the Texas Workforce Commission, they have a lot of great information on their website that's free to any employer. You can download the workplace posters. Another place to go look at is the Department of Labor and OSHA. We all know we've got those different posters we have to hang in our offices that folks continually like to sell to us. The reality is most of those are available to download as a PDF from the government websites for free. So take advantage of those so that you can then focus your money and resources on not just recreating the wheel, but positioning the organization for success.
And those free forms, quite frankly, could prevent a lawsuit.
Absolutely.
So become friends with your Secretary of State's website as well as your Workforce Commission websites. All right, the last slide that we have for you guys is business development and marketing. Really just talking about what works, strategically looking at the pathways to actually getting new clients. I think the first thing is to, quite frankly, be a member of NGLCC. I think most of the people on this call today are LGBTBEs. Will come to Palm Springs this year, and that we'll see you there. And maybe we have an opportunity to do together. Just talk a little bit more about our strategy, streamlined it as a mid-sized company, and how we get to the action item at the bottom is deliver.
Absolutely. So we look back a couple of slides ago, we talked about making sure understood what company was at and how we're going to implement that dream and really get to that. Different types of customers have very different ways of getting to them. So, for example, if you're B2B versus B2C, so that's business to business or business to consumer, you're going to have a very different strategy at getting your potential customers' attention. There are some businesses where social media can be a stellar route at getting into the door, getting on the radar, getting the attention of a potential customer. In other industries, it's going to be an older-fashioned approach of you've got to get to know them face to face. And it's going to be, perhaps some paper collateral, or just attending different networking functions and different things like that. But really know your customer, know where they get to know people.
And keep focused but not be blind. Opportunities will come your way. Be judicious, and your business will grow. Also, with strategic partnerships, whether it's an LGBTBE, an MBE, or a WBE, minority business enterprise, or women-owned business enterprise, or service-disabled, veteran-owned service business, partner with people, because some of the largest opportunities that we've won have been with other small and mid-market companies where we've slayed the lion. We have outcompeted the big guys because we came together, formed a strategic partnership, put together a better, and quite frankly outperformed those companies at a better price point. So don't sleep on those strategic partnerships. There's lots of opportunities out there, and I think that a lot of those opportunities will start to formalize at the conference coming up in Palm Springs. Finally, the action item is always deliver, and you guys already know that. We don't have a second chance to win back a customer if we don't do a good job. All right, so lessons to be learned. We've got the Just Desserts article. You guys will really, really love reading that. It really shows how the money of wealthy families can be lost very quickly because they don't have the processes, controls, and procedures in place. And The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Hopefully you'll download that. And if you email me directly, I did not put the link on here for The Magic of Thinking Big, but that's a book by David Schwartz. That book is not free, but it can be found on Amazon. And finally, we've got our contact information, and we're looking forward to answering any questions that anyone might have.
All right. Thank you again. So just as a reminder for everyone on the line, if you do have questions, please use the little chat function at the top of your screen. It's in that little bubble. Once you click on it, you can direct your questions through there. But in the meantime, we did have some questions. We had a few questions from folks as they were registering and RSVPing for the webinar. So we have a wide range of business owners on the webinar today. When should a business owner consider having an HR department? Sometimes these business owners are one-stop shops, and then in other cases, they may have 20, 30, 40 or more employees. So when is a good point to start developing an HR department and consider some of those bullets that you highlighted earlier in the webinar?
Well, I think it really has to start from day one. I think as soon as you hire your first employee, that's going to go out and have a department. However, you need to be starting to put in place some of those suggestions. Again, I think, for someone who may only have one or two employees, I would definitely go out and look at some of the free resources that are available. I would say, depending on the complexity, it's really going to be difficult because some folks may have one or two employees, and there may be some complexity that goes along with it. Other times, they may be able to get away with outsourcing it or some different options like that.
And really be careful when it comes to HR laws, policies, and procedures. It's really hard as an owner of a business to know all those policies and laws. And that's why there are outsourced HR consulting firms that will handle the HR components for you, the forms, the employee onboarding, and things like that, to make sure that it's in compliance with the laws of your state or the laws of the state in which you're doing business. Those things are often a lot more affordable than bringing in a director of HR for a very large salary, or having a tiered staff of 3 to 5 people on an HR team.
And realize, something even as simple as this in many states, as soon as you hire someone, you are legally obligated to notify the Texas, usually it goes through the unemployment agency, but sometimes it's a different state agency, that you have hired that person. So you've got those types of requirements even from day one.
Great, thank you. This next question is a little bit more specific to Excel Global Partners, but can you share how you have partnered with other companies and how that has allowed you to serve your clients and expand your business?
Absolutely. It's kind of a double-edged sword because we walked into the room with a large global prime one time to, quite frankly, win a huge opportunity for our company. EGP actually outshined the prime, and so I get a call back from the client saying, hey, such and such a big global firm, they were okay, but you guys partner with them and we'd like to hire you directly. Well, in business you have to dance with the one who brought you. So I couldn't go around that global prime to go directly to the client, and we lost out on a multi-million-dollar opportunity. Some other examples of strategic partnerships for us include us working directly with some other LGBTBEs, including AdNet, which is led by Betsy Cerullo in Maryland. Betsy's close to, the Washington, D.C. area. We have a GSA schedule. Betsy is able to serve as the eyes and ears as another LGBTBE, and she's a woman-owned business for opportunities within the Virginia, Maryland, D.C. area. For us on a national scale, Betsy's able to give us a call and say, hey, I've got an opportunity in California, or I've got something coming up in Illinois. Can you guys help with that? And that's been a wonderful, wonderful partnership for us. And I honestly can't say that we've had one bad experience working with another small business. Small businesses get the work done and they take it seriously. We probably have 10, I would say about 10 strategic partnerships. We've never been let down once by another mid-market or another small business.
And the truth of the matter is, depending upon the space that you're in, that can be extremely valuable because, for example, as you saw, one of our practice areas is financial IT. There are opportunities that a lot of times come up where we might be able to deliver, 50, 60, 70% of the requirements for that project, but the other piece is outside of our swim lane. We've got folks that we know that we can call up that we trust, that together we make a very powerful combination. And it's exciting to win that together.
Absolutely. And the other thing I'll say, Brent, is when a mid-market company like ours gets a substantially, a pretty good-sized contract, we hire people and we move the needle with the economy. When those opportunities are awarded to big, gigantic global companies with 100,000 plus employees, they don't hire anybody. They just give work to the employee. We believer businesses, the small business owners are the best and brightest that this country has to offer, and we've seen them shine in many, many instances, particularly in strategic partnerships.
Great, and I'm glad you mentioned the GSA because that's a nice segue in for the next question. How long did it take you to get your GSA schedule? Did you hire a third-party firm to help you through the process? And once you received it, how did you go about learning about upcoming government opportunities?
So with respect to the GSA schedule, we believe in you get what you pay for. And whether you're going for SBA 8A or GSA or whatever, go to a skilled former GSA employee. We had the regional director of our region, which I think included, several different states. He had retired and he started his own firm, and he said, hey, I help people to get on GSA schedules. Now, this gentleman was expensive. However, getting on the GSA schedule was one of the easiest things that we've ever done, and I would recommend him hands down, any day of the week if you're in, the Texas area or Southwest area.
And I will admit this in front of this large audience. As someone whose background is corporate, not everything that he said we needed to do made a whole lot of sense from a corporate standpoint. But again, he knew the customer. He knew what had to be done and how to make sure that it was done right. So I can tell you, if I had done the verbiage or James had done the verbiage around a lot of this stuff, we probably would still be trying to do it. We hired the expert and we knew our customer.
And we would have gotten a rejection letter time and time again and gotten really, really frustrated about the process. We went, straight to the top. We put the money into it. We made our money work for us, and then we quickly got onto the schedule. And today we're actually servicing a contract at the Library of Congress, which we have performed very well on, and that contract's coming to an end, but I think that we're going to have new opportunities with that. If you'd like to learn more about the GSA person who we worked with, please shoot me an email, and I will be happy to share his contact information with you.
Great, thank you. And also, just as a reminder to everyone on the call, the NGLCC has partnered with the SBA, the U.S. Small Business Administration, and they have regional offices across the country in most major states. But SBA.gov is their website, and you can search for your local office, and they're a plethora of wealth there. If you go there and you want to say you get on the GSA schedule, they should be able to help you out as well. But, definitely reach out to the person that James worked with as well. We have, looks like one more question. Can you share?
Hey, Brent. Brent, just a caveat, the person who we work with is really, really good, but he's old school and he's really bossy, but he's also very right when it comes to the GSA schedule. So we got into several arguments with him because we wanted to do it our way, but he has the GSA way of doing it. So just be warned, guys, if you hire this person, he's damn good. He's not going to take any stuff, but he's going to get you on the GSA schedule.
Thanks for managing our expectations with that. Much appreciated your forthright experience. So what is your advice on taking new opportunities that might give you new experience in areas where you might not have that experience previously? Do you try and appear larger than you really are, or really what's the best way to get in contact with a prime?
I think just pick up the phone. One of the things that I did early on in the business is I would fly everywhere and I would meet in person and I would spend all of my time in all these meetings. But in reality, if you are brave enough to make a cold call to somebody or to shoot somebody an email or to upgrade your LinkedIn account and say, hey, I noticed this in your profile, can we find 10 minutes to talk about how my firm might be able to be beneficial in a partnership with your firm? I think that's a great challenge for us all, is to be brave enough to pick up the phone, but it's cheap and it's effective and it's worked for us. And sometimes, we've spent tens of thousands of dollars on traveling, going to conferences. All those things are nice, but that's the icing on the cake. The biggest thing is to show up, pick up the phone, and do the work that's easy, do the work that's free.
And I think going back to the first part of that question about, getting new experiences and different things like that, I think that's one of those fine balancing things of any new small business, to really be able to say, hey, I may not have the exact past performance in this space to do exactly what's being asked. However, I know I can deliver. The first thing is obviously know that you can deliver, because if you don't, that bad news can spread very quickly and ruin future opportunities. But if you really do believe it is something that you can deliver, I think, again, that is one of those things where partnering with other folks that other strategic partners. So, for example, if let's just say you've got experience with a particular software, but you're trying to bid on a government project, and you have never done work with a government agency in your life. You know what? Going and finding a strategic partner who happens to have a lot of government experience but may not have the particular software experience could be a great combination for you to go in together and say, hey, this is where we've done this, and this is also, as a team, how we have dealt with government agencies before and why we believe we can be successful.
And for us, too, when we have a new opportunity that comes our way where we think it might be a good fit, but it's really tangentially related to our service and capabilities, John and I will sit down at the conference room table and make a list of pluses and minuses. And we'll specifically identify the areas in which we are weak. And after we do that, we'll pick up the phone, look into our Rolodex and call people to make sure that we can come up with the brain power to actually get a project done and the mentorship to be successful on it. And the main thing is, I'm on the phone a lot. And it's important to have lots and lots of friends in business, because the ability for me to pick up the phone, to phone a friend, to say, hey, help me to get through this, or do you have resources X, Y, and Z for us to make this successful, goes a very, very long way, and it's also been very, very profitable.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you both. It looks like we are about out of time, and I want to respect everyone's time. So thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar will be available on our website by the end of this week. If not earlier, you can always reference it back a year later, and you can also reference earlier webinars as well. But I just want to send a huge shout out to James and John. Thank you so much for imparting all of this knowledge about growing and putting in these processes that are really essential to make sure that growth continues. I know it was very helpful. I've no doubt it was very helpful for everyone on the call, and it was very interesting to me personally. But thank you so much.